Hi, I'm Susan. I'm from Worldpeacefull. I am a peace educator. I dreamed I was teaching peace back in 1998, which is what led my life down a certain trajectory where everything I've done pretty much since that time has been to understand peace. It's also extensive lived experience in respect of being in circumstances where I've not been at peace. So the reason I'm doing this video is because I lived for 2.5 years without a home, experiencing homelessness, and I've lived for 2 years without income. So I've already confronted the fear and reality of no income and no job. And I've pretty much lived in uncertainty probably for, I'd say about 18 years. I've lived in uncertainty. See, when you're in the peace field, there's not many jobs out there for people like myself because the society hasn't valued peace, is the truth of it. We've focused extensively on economics. I'm also trained in economics, so this discussion is really going to be to facilitate an awareness around the importance of peace building in the community, housed within an economic situation where all our fears are coming up. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experience because my guidance to the community is going to come from lived experience. It's not coming out of books. And I also want to bring in ideas that the community may not have any understanding of. Because most people these days are running around very busy. They've got their kids involved in all sorts of activities. They've had entitlement in the sense of there's an expectation that things will always be there, that food will always be there, that money will always be there. And I want to premise this discussion by saying the economics is a bit of a false reality and always has been. However, it's been able to be maintained because the Earth systems have had extensive resources that have really been extracted in this economic concept of economic growth. So this incessant treadmill that people find themselves on is because of this drive for economic growth, which is really about generation of wealth. And inherent within that is inequality. So obviously the 100,000 that we've seen in Australia in the last couple of weeks who've become unemployed is reflective of a weakness in the economy, given many people have been living on casual wages. So the pauperisation of the community and certain elements of the community has happened because of the power imbalance between the owners of business or property and those who are working, but their jobs are not secure. They're often casualised, particularly at the lower socioeconomic area. So we have not created social stability through that drive for more profit and the emphasis constantly on competition. So those weaknesses are showing right now. And with that, people will be feeling very terrified. The landlord-renter scenario is a difficult one, given there's a power imbalance between the person who owns a house and is renting it out to the person who's on a very low income and loses their job, and they're no longer able to even cover the rent. Negotiation, whilst I do believe always in dialogue, I think dialogue's very important. There is a power imbalance. But there may well be some flexibility for some people who don't throw out people or evict them. We are in extremely uncharted waters, which is why I'm doing this video, because I have actually been down this pathway. For me, it's normal to live in uncertainty. The social distancing is obviously to some degree not normal, but because I've been on my own, I'm pretty much socially distancing all the time. So I've had to live in this way already for many, many years, which is why I'm doing the video, because I've got peace skills as well, and I've had to overcome trauma, uncertainty, social isolation, rejection, lack of help from my community, which has been a constant. Some people help, but most don't. Most are too scared. And even those who say that they are in the position of helping don't always help. And what that comes from is really a base of fear. So we've lived in a culture of fear, which is what really is being amplified right now is fears, because we don't think we can be secure without economics, and that's what we've all been taught. I've lived without the basics in respect of income and housing for, as I said, 2.5 years. So this video is really going to be about supporting the public, and I'm going to try and help you on how to deal with this. So from time to time, I'm going to go still, because I've learnt to go in, not out, if I want to solve problems. And what that means is that there is a very deep wisdom within every person, but because we're so busy and we're living on surface a fair bit, some might call that surface dwelling. You know, we're watching TV, we're chatting, we don't really reflect much. We're not having time to actually sit deeply and really reflect on our lives, whereas I've had plenty of time for that. And because I'm a peacemaker, my whole life has been dedicated to focusing on peace. So I'm going to go still for a moment and get guidance as to how to guide the public and to start to introduce the notion of inner peace as a real security. Inner peace is real abundance, and that our lives are supported outside of an economic system. That's incredibly important that that's understood. I also want people to understand that fear is false evidence appearing real, because you're projecting into the future that doesn't exist yet. You may well have had experiences in the past which you're utilising to inform yourself about the future, but what I'm going to ask you to do in respect of this discussion is to suspend the past and to suspend the future. And I want you to sit with me in the now moment as someone who knows economic collapse, someone who knows economic crisis, and someone who knows what it's like to not get my needs met, but who's been able to resiliently move through this. So I'll go still first. I'm going to just pause this for 2 seconds to get more silence. Breathing in deeply, breathing out. I want you to do this with me. I want you to focus on the upper lip. This is what they do in Vipassana, which is a form of peace meditation. Breathe in, keep the mouth closed, breathe out through the nose. Breathe in, breathe out. I want you to feel very heavy in the seat that you're sitting in. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. This is the breath of life, and this is what is natural, is to breathe. By conscious breathing, what we're doing is we're stilling the mind, because people are thinking a lot. right now. They're also uncertain, and I want to just go into uncertainty. It means we don't have any control, and that's where the real fear is emanating from, is I don't have control over this. I'm hearing government, Prime Minister, ministers, chief health officer speaking about the coronavirus. This is out of my control. Although I can get a mask and I can keep my hands clean. But day by day, my freedom is being restricted. And that's increasing my sense of powerlessness. I feel, well, I don't think there's a problem. These are the thoughts that'll be going through people's minds. I need to work. Oh my God, I need to work. If I don't work, I'm not going to be able to eat. If I can't eat, I'm gonna starve. And this is a fear that comes up as a primeval fear, and I've had it many, many times when I've felt I didn't have enough. It's a primeval fear. It's coming from a primitive part of us, which is survival. It's basic survival. That's why we keep working. That's why we have done what we've done. That's why we study to get work, so that we can have security. Now I'm going to go into security. So uncertainty is lack of control. I don't have control and I feel powerless. Okay, so remember that one. Now we'll look at security. Again, it's about control. We tend to build things up around us to make us feel secure. Like, I've got a job, got a partner, got children, got friends, my needs are being met, I feel safe, I feel secure. So the root word of security is secure. I'm not panicking. I feel happy. I feel safe. I'm in a comfort zone, is what security feels like. No one can come and hurt me. If I go out there, I'm vulnerable. If I'm homeless, I'm vulnerable. Someone's going to attack me. Now I'm going to talk a bit about, I'm just going to talk briefly about how I confronted issues like that in my own life. When I was intimidated, when I felt threatened, I actually chose to do something that was very frightening for me in order to face fear. So I jumped out of a plane. I did a parachute jump. Now I did that to stretch myself because I knew that fear was false evidence appearing real. And the only way I'm going to overcome it is not by denying it. It's not by distracting myself. It's actually by full-on confronting my fear. So in that case, I did that through a parachute jump. I also did it by traveling the world by myself as a woman, without much money and staying with people I didn't know. So there was uncertainty around, who am I staying with? I don't know who they are. It was part of a couch surfing network around the world. But I remember saying, just do it. There's some spiritual teachers who say, feel the fear and do it anyway. So in order to stretch beyond my fear, I had to actually do something that was quite big. I was also a clown at the time, so I went around the world as a world peace clown. So it was also part of my life purpose. So each and every one of you has a life purpose, which you may well have put to the side because you've been busy with work, busy with making money, but you don't know who you are because you haven't had the time. I've had a lot of time to go deep, and I've had a lot of time to reflect. Now, a lot of people say, oh, it's all too deep, it's all too this. It's not. Depth is actually living a deeper life and feeling greater appreciation. It's not living on the surface of it, just superficially filling in time until you die, which some people do. It's actually going deep into your life about who you are, your purpose. So for me, whenever I was confronted with problems or fears, I've confronted it. Another way of doing it, particularly if you're in a lockdown situation where you can't leave the house, which many people are now moving into, I did the work of Byron Katie. Highly, highly recommended. Now, the work is a system to actually de-escalate tension, anxiety, fears, and projection. What we're all doing is, if you can imagine a movie screen and you've got a fear, and let's say your fear is the projector projecting onto, that's the mind projecting onto the screen, and you're watching that movie and believing it's real, but it's actually your fear that's projected onto that movie, okay? The work of Byron Katie is about identifying those fears. So you need to have a journal. You need to have a journal and say, this fear is coming up today. Today is the 29th of March, 2020. It's 8:53. I'm writing down my fears tonight. For me, when I was going to set up, I thought I was going to set up in a national park, a camper van, because a friend is lending me one, to then find out just as we're halfway through setting up the camper van, these German tourists tell us that the ranger had turned up and they're closing the national park. That means I don't have a place to live. It's not much help for people without homes, let me tell you, because most of them will flock to places where they can get facilities like toilets, and they need to be able to cook their own food. But because of this social isolation principle, social distancing, any place that's a public place now is being closed. And the thing is, where do I go? I don't own land. I can't just go lob up to someone's house with a caravan and ask if I can set up. People are not going to allow that because they're going to be fearful, because they haven't questioned their fears, of coronavirus. What if she's got it? No, we won't take the risk. And that's what so on the one hand, we're saying work together, but on the other hand, well, no, I don't know who you are, and I haven't really addressed any of my fears at this point. Fears, as I said, is false evidence appearing real. And you have to go deep to understand the truth of this matter. That's why depth is actually more about investigation. So the fear that came up for me today was that we had to move on, and then I'm back, at a friend's place, but this is temporary. They don't want me here full time. This is their home. I was invited to stay with the mother, but the mother's frightened of coronavirus. So I had to move from there to here. These people are not wanting me to stay. They're not being unkind. They're actually very kind. It's the truth of it. But this is their home. It's not mine. And this is what I often feel as a person without a home is I never feel I belong anywhere. And that's actually what homelessness is. You don't belong anywhere. And you don't want to impose on anybody. And now that we're under these circumstances, I can't even get a house sit because people aren't going away. So for those of us without homes, this is even worse for us, because not only have we had to confront homelessness and moving constantly and not having money, social isolation is a common feeling because you lose your friends for the most part. But I'm not frightened of this situation because it happens to me all the time. I'm moving pretty much every 3 weeks. I'm not staying longer, and I've been in this for 2.5 years. So the fear came up for me today about that, and I was actually pretty angry with the government at the time because I was thinking, well, what do we do when we're homeless? They don't even help us under normal circumstances. I don't feel I've been assisted anywhere near enough. I've even written to ministers and got no response. So the message I've been sent is fend for yourself, and that can be very tough unless you've lived it. So the lack of empathy is a barrier. Stigma is another barrier, and people's fears is a huge barrier because they're not questioned. When you're happy destiny, it's funny those words are coming to me now, happy destiny is unavoidable when you're open to opportunity. Funnily enough, Rotary's theme this year is all about opening to opportunities, and I even approached them and they wouldn't help me. And I'm a Rotary Peace Fellow, and what I wanted, funnily enough, was to actually just plug into some power so that I can then work on peace building in the community because I want to help the community. I've got the skills. But their fear became a barrier. What if she's got coronavirus? So when I told them I'd been homeless for 2.5 years, there was no response. I even contacted Buddhists who I'd been a student of, because they've got land and there's nobody there. They've locked the gate. And I asked if I could stay there. A friend of mine followed up for me and they said no. And yet their teachings were all about compassion. So what we're getting here is it's all very well to talk about helping each other. It's all very well to talk compassion. It's all very well to say, I'm doing my best. But the thing is, we're not confronting our fear, which is the reality. Now, I do understand many of these things. I've been through this for a long time now, so it's hardly a great shock anymore. It's the way humans are, because they haven't been trained in how to confront fear or to embrace fear, and they haven't learnt how to release it. So going back to the work of Byron Katie, which I've introduced, so you can go to thework.com, and I suggest you do that. Just pause my video, go to thework.com and pull down a worksheet. So the worksheet is what you want, and it's under resources on her website. So pause me and go and do it, and then come back. So I assume people have come back. They've got the worksheet. So the work of Byron Katie is phenomenal work, and it's excellent if you want to drop fear, if you want to drop anxiety, if you want to drop your projected reality that's actually haunting you. So what's causing you fear is not the coronavirus, it's the perception of catching the coronavirus. And with that comes fears of, what if I infect my family? Fears of, what if I die? Fears of, the economy is collapsing. Fears of, there's no future. If you've got a religious orientation, this is the end times, this is it, it's over. Terrifying for people. Someone's just told me yesterday that he was running a caravan park, so I tried to get accommodation at a caravan park and couldn't even get that. And he said he had to cancel 500 people. And I felt for him, because, he will be going, that's the best season, is Easter. Nonetheless, the reality is this is what has come to him. In my situation, I was clearly not meant to camp in the forest, which is what I was really keen to do, because I was going to work on peace so I can help everybody. And I have the skills within myself to talk myself back into centre. So I said to myself, after I let the anger out, because you get angry. It's okay to be angry. You just get angry. And I was annoyed, because I could see that it was going to create a lot of problems for people. And some German tourists told me they didn't know what to do. They had no money and they couldn't get home. And they'd lost their jobs. So I can see, the economic shutdown is going to create even greater hardship. And there could be a lot of suicides that come from this, far greater than the coronavirus takes. So this is something the government has to weigh up. You have to weigh up the social emotional side with the health side. And I'm going to go into that a little bit later through stillness, because I check into stillness because I get a lot of wisdom and answers through this. Don't mind if I move around. So I'm just going to go still for a moment. Okay, the work of Byron Katie is what I'm to talk about. Katie was depressed for 10 years. She was aggressive, alienating her family, not happy. She was not happy. Camper, I should call her. She was so low that she used to sleep on the floor and wasn't worthy of the bed. She used to conduct her real estate business from the bed. But this is a woman who was in total meltdown. Now, one day she said she was on the floor and she was woken up by a cockroach running across her leg. And she said she woke up and there was no Byron Katie. Her past had gone, her future had gone. She was standing, not knowing who the hell she was in the moment. And this feeling came to her to go to the mirror. She went to the mirror and fell in love with the image in the mirror. Now, this was a spiritual experience that I'm describing to you here. It's not something I can scientifically explain to you, But what I can say is that all those people who knew her said that they didn't know who she was. She didn't know who she was. Her husband didn't know who she was. This person was completely at peace. She'd lost the story of Byron Katie. She'd lost the story of her past. She'd lost the story of her future. She said that she was in a state of bliss. These would be called peak experiences that many mystics talk about. But what it is it's actually an awakening to who she really was. That peace is our actual true nature. But because we're trained with thought, thought impacts our emotions because of the way we perceive things. A lot of our distress and pain comes from imagined or perceived threats. We may hold on to things believing we're not good enough, but we don't question it. We hold a resentment towards someone, yet we don't actually look at why we feel this resentment. So Byron Katie says that when she woke up, the work was born inside her. Now, the work is 5 questions and a turnaround. So for those of you who have downloaded the worksheet, you can have a look at it, and you'll see there's lots of other questions there too. All it's about is really investigating your fears. It's not religious at all. It's very factual. It's like cognitive behavioural therapy for those who are familiar with psychology. It's like CBT. So I'll go to the simple part of her work, which is the corona. Hang on, I just will go still on the question for the public. Okay, the coronavirus is killing people. And it terrified. I'm terrified I'll be killed. So the coronavirus is killing people. The coronavirus could kill me. I'm just going to sit with it a bit more because I need to get more focused. I'll put it in these terms. The coronavirus is killing us. And that kind of can include the person as well as the group. Byron Katie would then say, okay, is it true that the coronavirus is killing us? You might say, well, yeah, we've got 17 cases. She would say, well, don't go into the story of the 17 cases. Just say yes or no. Is the coronavirus killing us? Well, no. If we look at all of us, no. Second question is, can you be absolutely sure the coronavirus is killing us? Well, yeah, the media have told, don't go into the story, she'd say. Yes or no? Well, no, if I'm really honest. I can't be absolutely sure that the coronavirus is killing us. Okay, let's go to the third question. How do you feel? How do you react when you believe the thought that the coronavirus is killing us? I'm terrified. All the businesses are closing. This is serious. What about my kids? Oh my God, I need toilet paper. I have to put that one in. I need food. Coronavirus is killing us. Oh my God, this is the end. We all know this is the end. I'm not going to have food. Oh my God, the future is everybody's dying. I can see people in masks and like surgical gowns. This will come from China, spreading all over the world. We're going to die. So how do you feel? How do you react when you believe the thought terror? You start to project into the future is what you're doing. And that's what the purpose of that question is, to show you your projections based on what's been fed to you through the media. How do you react when you believe the thought? Well, I've got to buy heaps of stuff. So I go to the store or the shop, and I just buy everything I can get because I need to store food. And I was told the Premier said, you need to, store stuff, get supplies. And so there was a rush. Oh my God, if he's saying that, that means we could end up with nothing. It's all going to collapse. Can't go to work, can't make money. I'm not secure, I'm not safe. What happens when everything falls apart? Everyone's going to go crazy. They're not going to cope with this. Okay, so these are all the fears coming up. It's good to face it. Okay, I want you to look at the coronavirus is going to kill all of us. Imagine it. Without a story. Now I want you to look at it without the story of the coronavirus is going to kill us. So if there was no story around the coronavirus is going to kill us, what do you see? It's probably what I see a lot of the time. I'm sitting here in an office doing another video like I always do. What do I see? My world is fine. No one's died around me. I'm not dying. Well, probably aging process, if I'm honest, and that's okay. What do I see without a story? I go down the road and there's less traffic. It's good. Go down the road, see people wandering around, see all the shops shut, and to be honest with you, and you'll all probably go, how can you say that? I say that's good. And you might say, well, why would you say that? Because the ecological system can't maintain our economic activity. So for me, when I see less activity, when I see the shops shut and I don't have a story, everything's peaceful. When I look into the playground, I see people with their children and I'm going, great, finally they're getting time with their kids. Great, great. Even saw a woman with her 2 children painting rainbows on her cafe window, and I was thrilled. She said, this is fun. I finally got some time. She said, I have no time to do this. Kids are loving it. Kids are all looking for rainbows. Isn't that great? This is the child's world. Making the most of it. Some people in the States, I think, did bears, didn't they? And the children go on bear hunts. These are great things. Okay. Going back to the coronavirus is going to kill us all, and I don't have a story. I actually look at the mountains. I smell the air. I smile at everyone. I'm still thinking of the peace work. My world hasn't changed at all, in actual fact, even though I move places, but that's normal for me. I move all the time. And I allow the universe to guide my movement. So in other words, I can't plan things too easily because for the most part, people don't take you in. But I have actually had some luck. I don't know if it's luck or whether it's just my life is supported. In fact, if I'm really honest about that, my life is supported would be the honest response here. And I have to say it's been validated, hundreds of times. So I'm sending this to you to say to you that your life is actually supported. When you relax into this, try new things. And interestingly enough, when you change your patterns, it actually changes consciousness. It changes your vibration. It actually grows you. It's amazing. And I've moved a lot. I was actually calculating probably since 2010, apart from 4 years where I actually had my own place before I was evicted, not through my own fault, but because the landlord had breached bylaws. So out of that time, so from 2010, we're now to 2020, so 2010 to 2020, that was 10 years. 4 years, so 6 years I've been in uncertainty. 6 years I've not had security. So I've had to develop inner security. I won't go into that. I'll go back now to Byron Katie because I'm feeling to. So when I look at the world without the story of the coronavirus, it's all fine. The sky hasn't fallen in. It's actually lovely. Okay, so let's look at the statement The coronavirus will kill us all. Let's turn it around to the opposite. The coronavirus will not kill us all. How do we know that's true? Well, people are not dying. There's been many people that are not dying, and we don't know statistically at this point exactly how many have not died, because the constant focus is on death, right? Nobody talks about how many got it and didn't die. My inner feeling is quite a lot. I'm just getting a feeling around death. It's fine. Death is fine. So you'd say, no, it's not. It's terrible. Yes, we suffer when people we love die, but death in itself is a natural state. Okay, so let's turn it around. Coronavirus will not kill us all. 3 reasons. I'm seeing people living. There's 6 billion people, 4 billion on the planet. They're not all dead. I can't know if it's going to kill us all, because that's a future projection. For the moment, no, it's not. I'm not seeing that. Okay. I'm killing myself through the coronavirus. The coronavirus is killing me in my mind if I'm afraid of dying from the coronavirus. So I see myself, oh my God, what if I contract it? Oh my God, I can't touch this, I can't touch that. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. I don't want to touch the money. And I'm not critiquing this, by the way. I'm just saying these are thoughts that be going on in people's minds. There's germs everywhere. It's got to be clean, fastidiously clean. I'm killing myself, believing, I could get the coronavirus, and that's the end of my life, and I'm terrified of dying. So it's happening in the mind where we're killing ourselves with the coronavirus. I'm not dead, I'm still here. So it's happening within my mind. Perhaps I'm killing an aspect of myself through the coronavirus that believed in the economic growth, that believed my security was dependent on money, that believed my world was the way it was and would never change, and that I was entitled to that world. So maybe in that sense, I'm being killed by the coronavirus. So the identity I once had is no longer. I'm having to reassess everything in my life because I might not be able to get work in the future. This may be a different future that I step into once this is over, if it's 6 months down the track. Anyway, these are projections. I'm still just playing with it. So it's essentially, I'm killing myself with the coronavirus. I'm just playing with the thought of that, what's coming up around that identity disappearing because of this coronavirus. I'm killing the coronavirus. So we're looking for ways to kill the coronavirus. We've got to sanitize, vaccinate. We've got to kill this thing. It's dangerous. It's a threat. I'm killing the coronavirus, coming up with solutions. So, it's about playing with this. And I recommend you have a look at some of Byron Katie's videos on all the fears in the world, because they come from the same consciousness. No, there is no new fears. We all share with us all the same fears. Now, for myself personally, I'm not actually afraid of the coronavirus at all, because I know that we die on time, and I said that in my previous video on this subject. We die on time. And that's a spiritual perspective that I'm aware of. I know that people live on. I am very clear that the time of your death is the time you're meant to die. So I don't have a fear around it for myself personally, because I know when I'm meant to go, I'll go. It doesn't mean that I won't social distance, I will. It doesn't mean I won't soak my hands up, I will. I will do what the society is doing because I want them to feel peace. But I personally have no fear of the coronavirus. As far as I'm concerned, it's going to be done and dusted, and I feel very strongly that we'll definitely get through this, but we're going to change. So I'm going to put to you that the coronavirus is a gift. Now, this is a peace perspective, remember? So I'm not coming from traditional media. I'm coming from another perspective. And how on earth could the coronavirus be a gift when it's going around killing everybody? I'm seeing people talking about helping each other more. There's actually someone who's done something that went viral about kindness as a virus, sending the kindness around the world as a virus. So beautiful people everywhere, and they're spreading kindness to each other so that people don't become fearful. So what we're seeing, and this is the gift that's come through this, is that there's wonderful and kind and innovative and creative and amazing people in our community, in actual fact. It's not all the movies. How else is this a gift? We have to stop the work. We have to stop the juggernaut of economic growth because the ecological systems are under extraordinary stress and tipping points are being breached. Environmentally, the ice caps are melting. We are seeing the climate changing, yes. Possible axis shift through the extraction of oil, in my view, given that even the sun seems a little higher in the sky. And that's actually been reported up in, I think it was, hang on, I'll just go still for a moment, Alaska. Some Inuit reported that the sun had actually moved in the sky. So the sun hadn't moved, it was the earth that shifted. So we actually have to stop and pause. So the coronavirus is a gift in that we have to actually stop what we're doing and take stock. The truth of the matter is, as a person who's trained in economics, is economics works on infinite growth modelling. And I remember when I was studying economics, this was one of the questions I put to my professor. If economics is all about infinite growth modelling, what about the ecological limits to the planet? I told him. That's not factored in. GDP is gross domestic product. This is calculating all the goods and services generated at a price in the economy. We aggregate that and we get a figure of GDP, which is supposed to determine wealth. But it doesn't actually take into account what we call externalities or pollution or detrimental effects or mental health issues or, degrading environments. We only calculate all the money that's spent. Could be good or bad. So it's a very poor indicator of wealth, of real wealth. And of course, even that can be argued. You can have all the money in the world and have nothing if you're not happy. So gross national happiness is worthy of a pause. Are you happy? Are you tired? That means we're not in balance. And in actual fact, the economic system does not have any ability to balance. The idea behind demand and supply, if you can imagine a graph with a demand and supply curve. I don't have a whiteboard here I can really show you. But let's just say that they intersect. So you've got price, quantity down the bottom, demand and supply, demand, supply. They intersect at what they call an optimal price, quantity. Now, the idea behind that is the market will be responsive to people's demands. And competition, the idea behind that is more competition drives price down. But that demand is marketed. That demand is stimulated by very clever marketing, which tends to play to your inadequacies and your fears so that you're not good enough and you'll buy this and it'll make you better. It'll make you prettier. It'll make you popular. It will make you happy. And of course, none of that is true. The only thing that can truly make you happy is when you make peace with yourself. So the story of peace has never really been told properly. There have been peacemakers, but, a curriculum in peace was never created. I actually dreamed I was teaching peace, which took me out of my work as a market analyst, which is why I ended up experiencing homelessness, because I came out of the professional area because I'd had this dream. I literally awakened through this dream. And I asked a friend of mine who was a teacher who teaches peace. And he said, well, we teach peace, but he said, but it's war and peace, it's not. Because I was asking about a curriculum. He said, it's not a curriculum. But my inspiration and my dream was we needed to have a curriculum. So I wrote Real Hopes. That's actually a model. And that can help you too with the times we're moving through right now. I recommend that you write down Real Hopes. So responsibility is R. It means you have the ability to respond. You can do something. Even if you're contained within your house, you can do something. You have the ability to respond. You can do something. Empathy is to stand in the shoes of others. In my case as well, I've looked at the Prime Minister. He looks very tired, actually, and I think he's pretty shocked at the devastation of a very tiny, microscopic virus. And it's come out of a biosecurity setting here through this lab in Wuhan. And we've got biosecurity where there's biological warfare being created, these agents. Now, I don't know for certain the release of this virus, exactly who did it. I have ideas on those who may have an interest in this sort of situation happening. But let's just say, without bringing that into the discussion, our fighting of things, through the biological warfare, this is still the war mentality that's going on. We've got to fight the virus. Well, no, you don't fight the virus. You've actually got to boost your own well-being is the best way to protect through this scenario. And you need to find balance. It's actually balance that's the answer here. And this is where I would just say to the government, if they're listening to this video, you also need to balance this whole scenario of people staying at home. You have to balance, because people need to have we can spend money on mental health and you can give them lines to call, but that's not going to change the situation because they don't know how to question their thoughts. That's why I'm here teaching the work of Byron Katie. It's a way of getting them to be empowered to address their fears as they come up. A counsellor can help that, but like the internet, it's all going to be overwhelmed, particularly as time goes on. So I just want to go still with that for a minute. We're constantly in an energy of against. We're fighting against this. We see that as the enemy. We see that other as the enemy. There's no enemy here. It's just the projected mind projecting onto a world because it hasn't dealt with the fear of insecurity, the fear of defenselessness, the fear of vulnerability, the real fear of powerlessness. That's the real essence that we're dealing with. So what my work in empowerment and peace is about is recalibrating back to balance. When you're in balance, those fears will not be there because you're in balance. And that also means, biologically speaking, you're sleeping, eating appropriately. You're not staying up all night on games. This is imbalance, particularly if you're indoctrinating through violent games. We don't want that because we don't want, in panics, people projecting unconsciously behaviours that harm others. So there needs to be, in this space of retreat, which is where we all are now, in a space of retreat, in a space of self-reflection, in a pause, we have to start to look at what we are co-creating. All the money that's been invested in economic growth has to be rethought. Human happiness has to be a consideration if we want balance. And happiness is actually a response to balance. When I'm happy, which is a lot, I know that I'm in balance. When I forget and I fall into fear and say, this should be different, I know that I'm in error. So again, going back to this morning when we found out that I couldn't set up a shelter really through a caravan so that I had a place to live because the parks were being closed, I have to sit with, that's okay. Life has said no to that. That door closed for the moment. Tomorrow a door might open. So rather than fighting against that door, I have to go still and think about, okay then, what are the possibilities here that I can select from? So we all have choices in where we direct our attention. We can go into escape, which many people will do as they try to forget about all of this because they're sick of the word, and I get that. But the escape is not really maximising, if you like, this moment in time where you can really look at you, and you can have some massive changes during this period of time, and you will. Life will change you nonetheless because we are changing. This is disruption. This is transformative times. We are not going to be the same when we come through this. We're going to be coming out with different values. And the selfishness that's really permeated a materialistic society has created many barriers to happiness in many respects because everybody's out self-seeking for their highest profit. And they're not caring about the homeless on the street. They're ignoring that. They're not caring about the resource depletion on the planet. They're going, oh, I don't want to know about that. They're not caring about each other. They're not knowing what their neighbours are doing. They don't even know what their own families are doing if they've moved away. So we've really lost a sense of community. We've lost that natural empathy that was there for each other because we got plugged in to our phones. We've created electromagnetic soups around us which have health effects. And that's something the government has to look at because, again, that's been created through an economic system which sees the profit in digital realities where ads can be put in front of people, again, on the same hamster wheel, getting them to buy, so someone makes profit out of this because they see the whole World Wide Web as potential to be millionaires, billionaires, and then they see power with that, the power concentrates, and then the world becomes in their image, not a shared world. Peace is about balance. Equality is about balance. Equality is truth. We are all equal. And what I mean by that, we have equal opportunity, we have diverse talents, but no one is superior or inferior. So that equality is really like the middle ground. There are some that are good at this and some that are good at that, but it's not really about better than or less than. It's really about we're all equal. Because when we're in a state of equality, we can excel to great heights, but we also see everyone else around us and we're not looking down at them. We're looking at them. We see everyone as family. So the peace narrative is really about questioning negative thoughts to know that negativity is taking us away from the natural joy that's sitting there. Negativity is unquestioned thinking. It's also wired into the neural networks in the brain. So there's all these little synapses in the brain that fire. So when you're used to thinking in a certain way, it can often be it's a left brain, logical sort of orientation. Those synapses will pattern in certain modes of thinking. The economic patterning is the same. Business schools, economics, accounting. We must do this. I must make a profit. I must get into business. I must, be self-reliant. I must be there. These are all patterns that have been trained into us. But in this time of pause, where our world is actually restructuring, this tiny microscopic virus is actually changing our world. And it may well be in accordance with nature that this is happening, because we are out of balance. We are. Some people are going to bring in the overpopulation argument, and I will address that again, because it can give excuses to others to justify depopulation, or have a hard-heartedness towards people dying, or have a view that those who aren't productive economically are not worth the same. So those prejudices can be used to justify that we don't care about those in those situations. But I would say, as a peacemaker, that the problem is not overpopulation, definitely. Buckminster Fuller is someone you can follow up as well, who would also say the same, and he was far more enlightened than I was. He's the one that created the geodesic domes. For those of you who've seen Pine Gap, you can see the round domes there. They're geodesic. Also, he's very much about the world as an earthship. He says we have to be engaged 100% in service to humanity. Coming back to the population issue, what I see is we're over-consuming. As someone trained in economics, we are consuming way, way more than our footprint. That is the footprint that puts us into homeostasis. So consuming just enough so that we're not taking from future generations. That's also sustainability. So we are completely out of balance with the natural earth systems, which are all in communication with each other, and natural selection always selects species that create balance with the whole. So if there's a species that's over-consuming and it consumes way too much, nature will respond and that species will die off. Cancer is uncontrolled cellular growth. That's also a reflection of imbalance. Things are being interfered with through radiation, through stress. We're out of balance. These out of balance is what is causing the lack of well-being. Peace, when you learn peace by breathing, by questioning the thought process, by learning how to dialogue through conflict resolution without abusing someone, but through an equality approach. You're being fair. You're listening to what they have to say. They're listening to what you have to say. You're not using, derogative language or unkind language or nastiness to beat them because you want power over them. You want to beat them into submission so you feel good. That's an old paradigm of power and control. The peace paradigm is about really hearing the other side and being heard. And then the two of you speaking with respect. There's usually a third-party mediator there. But speaking with respect, when you speak like this, I feel that, and what I want is this. Because we've got to learn to live together. It's not about dominating me, trying to make me feel fear in order to get what you want. The peace narrative is all about, actually, we have to learn how to dialogue. We have to learn how to express our needs and make a space for someone else to express their needs. And then we need to work out how we really solve this. Now, the Prime Minister tonight did talk about, again, with the landlords and the renters, that he wants them to talk about it and try and negotiate. It's going to be a tricky one, that one. But he is, in a sense, advocating for dialogue, and that I will always be in agreement with that. But with respect to both sides. So if the landlord can put themselves in the shoes of the person who can't pay rent, that they will become homeless, which is not going to help our society. And certainly I can say, as a person who's experiencing homelessness, I'm not being helped. I've already had a friend put on Facebook a request just for a piece of land, nothing else. A woman responded, and then we had a text message, and then she's gone. She made a judgment somewhere along the line. I have no idea what it was because I just suggested we meet and, she could take me and show me the land. But gone. I even rang her phone, nothing. So what I'm saying is if people get evicted out as homeless, this is a far worse environment. And I've certainly been through difficulties as it was before. People are going to be even more difficult in respect of cutting some slack to someone who's experiencing homelessness. So definitely there has to be a moratorium on paying rent. You have to let people stay. But as you give, you will receive. So there is a universal response. It's a little bit like E equals MC squared is the way I usually. So whenever you put something out and you're generous and you're kind, it does come back. But we've been programmed to think that we've got to take this and take that and take this to maximise our security, and others can go eat cake or we don't care. That actually puts you in a poverty mentality, and it actually makes your life harder, because the only way I can word this is that there is an intelligence to the life we're in, and as we think it, we're actually creating around us the life and the times we're moving through. Now, this intelligent design, this intelligent life is responding to your thought process. So if you're constantly on the take, if you're constantly negative, then you're going to see it replicate in your environment. It's going to mirror back to you these things. Whether you believe it or not, this is what happens. So the important thing with peace is if you know that you're not in control, and you never were, ever, the economic system created that false sense of certainty. And yes, it was in a rhythm of routine, and yes, you pay money, you get this. But in respect of nature, it was false signals. It wasn't in harmony with the natural system, which is why we're going through disruption, because the earth itself is recalibrating. The earth itself is moving to a higher trajectory. The earth itself cannot support an imbalanced species. So we either learn peace and we learn to envisage a harmonious future. We either make decisions that we're not going to indoctrinate young children with violent images that are fear-based. We have to make a new decision to actually start to create a peace philosophy in our society where we help each other, so there will be no fear of missing out or being starving on the street, because we see the homeless, and we know that people are they're not helping them enough. And then we're spending billions, if not trillions, on these packages since the fires, and yet we had 116,000 people homeless who were not helped. They're not in homes. Instead, they became a product in a market sector who were making money from the government, providing these rooming houses, which are not safe anyway, and in substandard conditions, as if they are less than equal. So I'd question that. I think that needs to be completely abolished. No one should be without a home. I don't disagree with the principle of a universal basic income. I thought of it over a decade ago. But I do have concerns that if it creates a dependency and then a person who disagrees with the system gets cut off because it's been controlled by government, let's say, that can be problematic when we're in an environment right now where we've seen more controls and more rights being revoked. That's concerning. I encourage people to have a look at the Australian Bill of Rights that was put to the Senate on the 16th of September 2019, and it's actually not been passed as of the 24th of March 2020, so not very long ago. I really highly recommend people look at the Bill of Rights, because we need to ensure that everybody has a right to shelter, a right to income support, a right to self-determination, of course. And once this virus issue passes and the chief health officer can say, okay, it's under control, it's fine, you can all go back and do what you need to do. Once that happens, then we have to look at coming together as a community, as a democracy, and starting to help each other far, far more than what we've done in the past. We've neglected each other. We don't even know our neighbours. So going back over this narrative, just very briefly, I have introduced to you the importance of peace building in our community. Now, we haven't put enough emphasis on it. I've talked to you about the work of Byron Katie very briefly, which is similar to CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, which is really about looking at projection into the future and the past, recognising that it's just our fear that we're projecting, that it's not real, to look at reality as it is now, and in this moment of now, things are fine. I'm not dying of the coronavirus. I'm fine. To not allow fears to stop us from helping one another. If somebody reaches out for help, of course help them. You can ask them, are you unwell? And if they're unwell, you need to then facilitate that they go to a hospital or they get tested, make sure and follow up. You can do it by phone. If you're worried, you don't have to have, there's no physical contact needed here. So there's nothing to fear because you're not going to be close to them anyway. You can wear a mask. So, there's no reason why people can't help each other in this community that's based on a peace philosophy. This is also a time of reflection. We are having a pause. We are questioning all the fears around economic insecurity, not having a home, experiencing homelessness we're frightened of, and some will be, particularly those people who have been evicted already. So it's to say to you, as I said before, life does support you, and I can tell you that from my own experience of having experienced homelessness for 2.5 years and no income for 2. Something always comes. But you have to look with curiosity about life and go, oh, that's interesting. Life is taking me over here. How do I know I need this? I've got it. How do I know I don't need it? I don't have it. This is the work of Byron Katie, very wise. Life is always responsive to our thought process, so let's start thinking constructively. Let's start looking at, okay, well, how can I be of service? How can I be of help? If being of help is staying at home, then stay at home. If it's ringing people, making sure they're okay. If someone's alone, maybe someone can set up an online group and call people who are on their own. Perhaps reach out through social media. Start thinking about, is there things that I can actually constructively do here if people get really stuck, particularly if this goes on? As I said before, I believe the virus is a gift in many respects because we can't go on economically in this growth type paradigm. It's not going to work. We've got ecological limits and we're already seeing massive ecological stress. So the economic system is not in balance with the natural system. So we have to change. So this interrupt that we're experiencing is a pause. It's a moment of reflection and you have to go deeper. You can either escape or you can start to focus on the fears that are coming up and use this time productively to deal with the fears which are false evidence appearing real. The work of Byron Katie will help you work through it. You can do it with your children as well. Once you master the work, and it's only 5 questions or 4 questions and what they call turnarounds. It's not complicated. It's actually quite simple. But the important thing is to question. There's no mistakes in the universe. Life is happening exactly as it's meant to be happening because we're here to learn from our life. As I said before about the confrontation with or confronting of death, we live on. All death is a transition, and apparently it's your most joyful point of your life is your passing. But we live on. I just want to make that really clear because I know that's where the big fear is. We are spiritual beings having a physical life experience, and there is an intelligence in this world that you can tap into. If you go still, like I showed you through the breathing in, breathing out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. You can utilize the time to spend more time with your children. Play games, play board games. Don't get onto the electronic devices if you can avoid it. It's good for you all to sit around a board and play Monopoly or just have some fun with each other. Then maybe some quiet time, structure the day. But utilize this time, and if you get angry, conflict resolution, and I'll put some links to this video on conflict resolution and Byron Katie's The Work. It'll be on here to help you deal with conflict, because it's going to come up for sure. Your happy destiny is unavoidable. We are going into a far greater future once we come through this. We are moving out of an old paradigm and we're now moving into a new one. It is going to be an era of peace where we're moving toward. There is definitely disruption as part of this, but like any life, some people have nervous breakdowns and then they come out of it and they come out stronger. Or you might have had a devastating divorce and then you meet someone who's the love of your life. So life has its own interesting pattern. And in my view, we're facing the shadow side of humanity, which is all the fears. It's been forced on us. That's why it's really funny. That's why everyone has to stay at home. It's not just about the virus. It's actually about people learning to be in their own company, which people don't want, they avoid. They're trying to run off and escape. So life, which is way beyond the government, life, this intelligence, is actually getting us to stay at home, to be still, to reconnect with our families, to have time out. So look at it as a sabbatical. It's time out, okay? The future we're moving into is going to be a far greater future, and we are going to awaken to who we are. We're far more powerful than we know. We have infinite skills, but we've narrowed the field by our belief systems. We are part of a universe here. There is other life in this universe. And we are, in a sense, going from a level of, I hate to say it like this because people can go, what? The toddler. We're actually growing up. We are quite, our world in its violent sort of trajectory is quite primitive. But where we're going is going to be to a much more sophisticated society. We're going to learn to love each other and ourselves. We're going to recognise that love is actually the key here. Much of the negative behaviours, if not all of the negative behaviours, have come from lack of love. Once you start to understand that unconscious thinking, where you're not actually becoming aware of what you're thinking and how it's actually creating your life, once you become aware that you're the creator of it, you're doing it, then you start to choose your thoughts more carefully. Whenever we're unkind to other people, it's our own unquestioned negativity within us being projected onto someone else. When you own it, you actually take your power back. When you deny it, you delay your growing. Many people don't know these things because they're not taught. We're one family. Some people might have discriminations against other cultures. Could be gender, could be age, could be what music you're into, could be anything. You could be discriminating on a whole heap of lines. That's always coming from your own inferiority. Once you question that, you start to recognise that everybody is playing out perfectly where they need to play out. When you come from a higher spiritual perspective, and when I say that, it's kind of like an oversight looking at the whole thing, you start to realise that we live on, and we've lived many lives, and we've lived as different cultures, we've lived as different genders, and once you start to get to that point, you just go, all these discriminations are a waste of time. None of it's true. And when you recognise you're actually part of that higher intelligence, that you are worthy, you are intelligent, you are incredible. Once you tap into that, there's nothing you can't accomplish. This virus is nothing. This is gone. The virus is gone. Once you get it, the virus goes. Because everything that manifests in our lives are actually coming from lessons that we're here to learn. The world is not what we think it is, and these alternative types of ways of seeing are often not front and centre because we've been very heavily invested in an economic system that people feel they can't do without. And their identity has been really hooked onto the successes that come out of the economic system. And even though they know the ecological system is collapsing, they're still going at it. We're still mining. We're still using coal burning when we've had free energy. We've still got oil wars happening. We've still got militaries making money out of these scenarios and justifying that as a business when the killing of human life is not a business. There's got to be a line drawn in the sand there and say, well, no, we need to go to a higher trajectory here. If conflict is where you make all your money, where does that leave the world? I mean, how many conflicts do you keep creating, and what happens when it gets out of control? What if this is a biological weapon that's been released? What then? Everything stops. So it becomes a zero-sum game ultimately. When you put out negatively, it creates a win-lose. And even the win in that win-lose loses. We only win when we all win, and that's why we have to come together. And this virus is teaching us that we're actually in it together, that we've got to care for one another, be mindful of those voices that target those who aren't complying. I would again suggest to those in power, shaming might well be a popular way of doing it, but I think you can take it to a higher level. Really, it's just that people are perhaps not, you've got to understand the problem. They're probably just not believing that they're going to catch it. So you're going to have another percentage of the population who actually don't believe it's true. So the challenge is how you get through to them. But I wouldn't be pitching one person against another because you're going to create conflict. Look at those people over there. Clearly, they're going against the rules. Well, they may not be going against the rules. They may not know. They may have forgotten. They may have thought it's okay to do that. I'm not coughing. I'm fine. So it's a question of solving the problem, not hating the person. These are basic premises of conflict resolution. If you go down that track in authority and you start to divide people, you're going to create more problems down the track. People get vilified. People might be killed. People could suicide because you're threatening everyone. So you've got to watch the narrative. Peace narrative is the way to go here. And I'm available. I've got plenty of time. Would be nice to have somewhere to put the caravan though, because I can't stay here. You know, once lockdown happens, I'm actually going to be without a home. So I'm available. I am. You can contact me through Homeless Lives Matter at Worldpeacefull. That's World, peacefull.com. So Homeless Lives Matter at Worldpeacefull, full.com. If you want to check out my websites, www.worldpeacefull.com. The other one is Happiness Australia, because I've had quite a background in happiness too. That's why I'm very resilient, because I do see humour in a lot of things. So ha.worldpeacefull.com is Happiness Australia. So let's start with that. I'm happy to do consultations too and take you through the work. I'm also happy to teach you conflict resolution if you're having a family problem. I can do family peace. So feel free to make contact with me as long as they can give me Wi-Fi. I can do anything. I've even got a children's parliament. I've even got children's Real Hope programs. So if I can get support in the community to do what I'm doing, I could probably put together some training for children, which is fun. I've already written the program and I've already delivered it. But I was teaching as a humorous character called Peaceful to children, grades 5, 6, and 7, really, but teaching them peace so that they too can have fun and learn how to resolve conflict. So I'm available. I'm here. If you need me, make contact. Take care. Bye.